Welcome to Geo Mapping. This training is going to be awesome. I'll be taking you through building maps, adding data, customer segmentation, territories, coverage circles, driving distances, and if a lot of that sounds new to you, that's why we're here. So let's jump right into it.
Okay, here we are inside the account. I've just logged in. The first thing I want to go over is this left-hand sidebar. You'll see on the left I've got datasets, views, maps, reports, charts, a bunch of things here. For geo mapping, you are going to have access to datasets and maps. So let's talk about these two things. A dataset is the core piece of Mapline. Everything else is built from a dataset. A dataset is any imported set of location-based data. So customer locations, hospitals, employee locations, anything like that, those are all data sets. You can also bring in non-address data into Mapline. They just won't be pins on the map. You can bring in sales history, things like that. So once you bring in a data set, that one data set can be used on anything else within Mapline, any other visualization. So you can add that data set to 5 maps, 20 reports, 100 dashboards, whatever you want. So let's start by adding a data set to Mapline. I'm going to click the big orange Add New Items, then Dataset, then using Spreadsheet. You do have the option of building a dataset from a connector. So if you want to bring in data from HubSpot or Salesforce or Microsoft OneDrive, those type of things, you can do that. But today, I'll keep it simple with using Spreadsheet. All right, here I'm going to type in customers as the name of my dataset. And now I can upload or I can paste in the list of data. For this training today, I'm going to just paste in my data. So let me pull up my dataset. All right, here is my data. Now first, this is just an example. Your data doesn't have to look like this. You'll see my address information is split across multiple columns. That's fine. Your data can all be in one column. It all is gonna work. Mapline can take it all. So in addition to a site name and some address, I also have just some other columns here: sales, status of the customer, the region they belong to, assigned team. I also have latitude, longitude. So any type of address information is going to work. Let's say I want all of this in Mapline. I'm just going to do a shortcut here. I'm going to do Control A to highlight all of my data. And then I'm going to copy it. Perfect. Now let's go back over to Mapline. And then I'm going to just paste in my data. Super simple. So again, you can upload if you want instead, or you can pull from a connector, from SQL or anything like that. Use our API. There's a lot of other options, but simple. You can just copy paste. Okay, here Mapline is identifying the address columns. All I have to do here is just make sure that Mapline's not misidentifying a column. If it does, I can just click the drop down and change that to the proper column. But everything here looks right. I am going to change this to just the US. That's the only data that I have. And then I'll click OK. All right, customers were added. Let's go take a look at that. And here it is. You can see that Mapline is currently geocoding those customer locations, determining where on the map should those pins appear. I'm going to go ahead and click on customers just to open up the data set. Okay, here we are. Now this has the exact same data that was in my Excel sheet. So we'll see site names, address information, sales, all that good stuff. The data here is editable. I can double click into column and change this customer from active to inactive or something, for example. And that's one way to update the data. Another way to update this is under options. If I go to replace, I can update this data from a spreadsheet or again from using connectors. This would allow me to replace this with the newest version of this data. Or I can go click on the option here. In addition to replacing, maybe I have the new version, but I don't want to add or remove records, just update what already exists. Or maybe I want to update any existing records and then add any new records. So a lot of options here with replace, and again you can paste or use a connector. Okay, there are some other buttons on this page as well. Buttons like dependencies and add columns. These are different ways of interacting with the data on this page. So if I want to see where's this data set being used, if I want to add columns to it, sort or filter it, that type of thing, those buttons are there. But I'm going to get to the good stuff. Let's add this to a map. Anytime I'm in Mapline, I can click on the Mapline logo in the top left corner to bring in a menu. And in this case, I'm going to click on Add New Map. And we'll close my demo map and I'll click OK. And here's our map. Now, maps and datasets are separate. Just because you add a dataset to Mapline doesn't automatically add it to a map. Again, data is data, and then everything else are visualizations. So I can have one dataset on as many maps as I want. If I click Add in the top left corner and then Pins, that's how I can add my data. And you'll see I have a couple of options here. The first is from a spreadsheet. So this would be a shortcut. I could copy and paste my customers directly onto this map, and that will simultaneously create the dataset in my dataset library. I went the long way. I added the dataset to my library, and now I'm going to pull it from my dataset library and add it to this map. I went the long way because it's important to understand adding it directly to this map from a spreadsheet still creates a dataset in your dataset library. And I want you to understand that you have a dataset library and a map library. I'm going to go ahead and click on Dataset Library. I'm going to add my customers, and then I'm going to add my employee locations as well. This is a different dataset I uploaded. You didn't see me do it. Let's add both to this map. I'll click OK. OK, and there they are. So I'm going to do a couple of things first, just for my own sake. I'm going to zoom in this map. Shows the whole world. That's not what I need. This is the zoom level I want Mapline to open to every time. So I'm going to go to Options, and then under Settings, I'm going to just click Use Current Position. I have some other options here, like maybe it saves my last spot, things like that, but I'll leave it like that and click OK, big orange button. Okay, with that set, I'm now going to update the way that my pins look. I want those to look differently, I want marketing to be happy with me. So over on the left-hand sidebar, I have my customers and my locations. I can check and uncheck these boxes in order to show those layers on the map, but they also have this 3-line bar menu over here on the right. So if I click on customers, the menu, this is everything I can do with this layer. It's a lot. We're going to go through this. I'm first going to start with style. I want these pins to appear a certain way. So the style option, and then I'm going to click on pins. I'm going to adjust the way these pins look. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to change the color of the pin. We'll use the Mapline blue. We'll leave the interior and exterior for now. I'm also going to drop the cluster down to 0. All cluster does is it takes pins that are close together, groups them, puts a number. That keeps the map looking nice and clean. If you're only working with a couple thousand, couple hundred pins, you can remove that. If you're working with 10,000 or 50,000 pins, you'll want to keep that on. It just helps the map perform great for you. And I'm going to turn that off for the employees as well. And then the employees, I'm going to change their Mapline orange, and then I'm going to change their exterior. We'll make them a little person. And I'll change their interior. I'm going to remove the interior, so it's just a little orange person. There we go. Now click OK. Hey, this looks great. One more thing I want to do before we dive into the other abilities. I have an employee in Denver, but they're buried. All of the customers are appearing on top of the employees. Mapline is going to follow the order in your left-hand sidebar. So in this case, I probably want my employees to appear on top of my customers. So the far left 2x3 dots, I'm going to click and hold that, drag it up above customers, and let go. Now we can see that Denver and some of these other places, the buried employees are now appearing on top of my customers. That's what I want. Okay, let's jump into the next thing. When I hover over a pin, it's going to show a label. It defaults to the name of the pin. If I click on the pin, I can see all the information from my original Excel sheet. So let's say instead of the name of the pin, I want something else to appear in that label, or I want the label to appear different. Let's go over to my employees on the far left. I'll click that 3-bar menu. And above, up in Style, I can go to Pin Labels. In the label styling, I can choose when should the label appear, what should be in the label, and how should the label appear. So in this case, I want the name of the technician and I want the type as well. And then the background and the border, I'm going to have those just match the pin color. So if I apply a segment later on or a heat map or something that changes the color of my technician pins, the label will match that color. That's pretty cool. I'll click OK. Awesome. So there's Devin Sanford, he's an electrician. There's Ali, she's an electrician, so on and so forth. So that's labels. Let's keep going down the list. The next two are very important, filter and segment, because not only are they widely used across our customer base, but also within Mapline. Filter is going to pop up in a lot of places. If you're building a route or a chart, if you're doing Mapline formulas, filters are going to appear all over the place. So I'm going to show how that works now. This is how the filter is going to look pretty much everywhere you use it. There's going to be a top select column, a modifier, so equals, contains, or something, and then a bottom piece. So in this case, let's say I only want to see customers whose status is active. So if I click this drop down, this is going to show me all of the columns from my data set. So in this case, I want status. Now you'll notice there is a geospatial option here. So maybe I only want to see my customers within a certain distance of a store, a single store or something like that. I'll stick to status for now. I'll click the blue checkbox to apply it. Equals is the default, that works great. And then I could type in active, but just to be sure, I'll use the drop down and see my options. And I'll use active here, and then I'll click the checkbox to apply, and I'll click OK. All right, less pins on the map. All of the inactive pins have been hidden. Let's go back into that filter. I'll click that drop down and then filter. In addition to equals and does not equal and contains, there's a lot of other types of filters we have. So if I scroll up a little bit, I'm actually in text filters. We have text filters, number filters, date filters, and I have a little plus sign where I can add additional filters to this. So maybe I only want to see active customers with sales greater than $3,000 and a visit date, last visit date has been over 90 days. So these are people that I gotta go visit. I want to see them on a map. Totally doable. And I would just I'd use this plus sign to add more logics. Okay, I'm going to remove this filter for now. We'll get back to base map. The next thing I can do is add a segment. So let me go back to my customer menu. The segment tool allows me to group my pins based on my data, and then I can treat those different segments differently on the map. Maybe I want one segment to be blue and another segment to be red, that sort of thing. So in this case, let's segment my customers by their status. So maybe I want my actives to be green and my inactives to be red. Here I'll click the Add Segments button. I'll select which column or columns I want to use. In this case, I'll do status. I'll click the Apply checkbox, and I'll go ahead and show pin count. We'll see what that does. And then I'll click the orange OK. Awesome. I've got some blue pins and some purple pins. Which are which? If I go over to the left-hand sidebar, Customers, I have this little drop-down blue arrow, and I hover over it, it turns orange. If I click on that, this is going to show my segments, my groups here. And so I've got active pins and inactive pins. I can click on the 3-bar menu for either of those, and then I have some similar options to the parent level. I have style and some other options here that we'll get into. So I can use the style button, or I'll show you a shortcut. I can click on the folder to pull up the style. So maybe I want inactives to be red, something like that. I'll scroll down and click OK. Okay, that looks great. Now, segments are really powerful for qualitative type of data. Name of rep, customer type, sales, tier, things that have like categories or groups, last visit date, that's all great. If my data is more quantitative, if I wanted to color these by sales numbers or by order counts, anything like that, I'd probably want to style my pins based on that, not necessarily segment them. Under the style options, if I go to pins, if I go to the color option here, you can see there's actually an automated option where I can base it off of a column in my data. So maybe I want it to be based off of sales, and I want high sales to be green, low sales to be red. I can set that all up here by selecting a column that has the sales data, playing around with the groups, that sort of thing. Let me get back to base map. Okay, let's see what else is in that 3-bar menu. I'm going to click the 3-bar menu for employees, and we're going to go to coverage. Can't forget about coverage circles. This is going to put a circle around every single one of my employee locations. Now that circle can be based on just a straight line distance, or it can be based on a driving distance or a drive time. So if I did driving time, I could say I want a 20-mile radius set around every single one of my employees. I want to see where can they get to within 20 miles. Driving distance and drive time, I have the ability to set that drive distance or time, my level of detail, so how high fidelity do I want the result to be. Even the low is really good. I'm going to stick to straight line distance for now, and let's make the distance, let's do 35 miles. I'll hit the checkbox apply, and then my fill and border, I want those to follow the color scheme that I have here, so I'm going to make that fill sort of a light orange. The border, I'll make it a black border, and then I'm going to bring that opacity down just a little bit. Bring that border on. Okay, and now I'll click OK. Okay, back to base map here. Let's go back to that 3-bar menu. The next one is heat map. Heat map is very similar to coverage. It's going to put a circle around every single one of my pins, but in this case, those circles will bleed together and give me some type of heat. So if you can imagine a rainfall heat map or like a bubble heat map you'll see on the weather station, that sort of thing. I'm going to click on heat map. We actually have a couple of different types of heat maps, and you can explore that on your own time. For now, I'm going to stick to overlapping radius areas, my preference. Let's do 50 miles for this, and then I can heat on just the density of the pins, so how many pins are there, or I can use something in my data. So in this case, I'm going to use sales data. So sum of sales, everything looks great here. I'll click that big orange OK button. Okay, there we go. A lot happening on this map. Let's zoom into an area with a lot of pins like California. So what this is doing is it's taking every single one of my customers, it's putting a circle around it, and then where those circles overlap, overlapping radius areas is the type of heat map I picked, it's increasing in color. And I can see my little legend in the bottom right, 15 up to 2057. So somewhere I have about $2,000 worth of sales, 2,800 sales within 50 miles. Pretty cool. I can see that heat on the map. All right, let me get back to base map here. Okay, next we're gonna do hub and spokes. I'm gonna go over to my employees layer on the left, and we'll select hub and spoke lines. This is gonna draw lines between two sets of data. In this case, I want my employees to be the hubs, and I want lines drawn from my employees to my customers. Which customers? I need to set up that filter. So here I've designated the spokes to be my customers, so I'm going to go from my employees to my customers. Let's look at the filter I've set up. I don't want one employee drawing lines to every single customer that I have. It's only specific customers. In this case, it's only the customers that that employee is assigned to. So I've set up this filter, so there's filter again, where the assigned employee in the customer's data set. So in my customer's data set, I have a column called assigned employee. Some customers are assigned to Joe, some are assigned to Sally. Whatever that value is in the assigned employee column, it has to equal the name of the employee in the employee's data set. So I'm looking at the customer's data set, the assigned employee column, and then I'm looking at the name column in my employee's data set. And those two values have to match. If they match, draw the line. If you've done anything in Excel, it's kind of like a lookup. So I'll keep all that the same. I'll click apply, and then the style of the lines, that all looks good, so I'll go ahead and click OK. And there we go. That is pretty cool. In this case, I think the assigned employee is just the one that is nearest, which I use Mapline to calculate. So if I go down to a place with multiple employees, there we go. And there they are. And again, I did straight line nearest. I could have done driving nearest, but that is really cool. That's hub and spoke. Okay, back to base map. Let's go to that 3-bar menu again. The rest of these I'm going to just kind of lightly touch on, and then we'll go into more detail later in the video. So add pins just lets me add pins directly to my data set. Drop a pin on the map, and boom, it's in my data set. Create optimized route, I'm going to spend some time on later. Create territories, I'm going to spend some time on later. These two options can also be done from the add button in the top left corner. If I do it here, it just is more tied into the data. I am going to spend some time on create center points. This lets me take a bunch of my pins and then find the center of minimum distance or the midpoint of those pins. So for example, let's say I have 50 customers on the map and I want to see what's the center point for all those customers. That's what this tool would be for. Let's keep going here. I also have view data. So that just pulls up a little shortcut to my data set. Now remember, data is centralized. So if you edit it here, it's going to be edited everywhere, wherever this data set's being used. So if I come in here and make a change, it's going to change all other places as well. And we'll keep going down this menu. Settings allows me to make some changes to how the pin appears and is visualized on the map. So for example, if I click on this, I can choose to not have the pop-out appear when I click on the pin, or I can hide blank fields in my data. Maybe I want to change what pop-out title appears when you click on a pin. Maybe I want to change the fields themselves. Maybe, yeah, it's useful to have the latitude, longitude for geocoding purposes, but I don't want to see that when I click on the pin. I don't want that listed, so I can remove those. Things like that. So pretty cool settings. It's a little buried, but really useful. I find myself using it a lot. Whew, all right, that was a lot of awesome stuff about pin layers. If I go over to the add button in the top left corner, I have more options. So we just talked about pins, but then we have shapes and territories. Honestly, what's the difference? These are kind of the same. Shapes are just circles and rectangles and lines, and then territories are, you can draw your own shapes, or you can use our repository. So if you want to add US counties to the map or zip codes or something like that, there's like tons of different options in there. All shapes and territories are going to act the exact same way. So for my example right now, I'm going to go ahead and just click on Draw Custom. And let's go into Chicago. Click and drag the map here. Okay, so every time I click, that creates a point on my shape. So click, 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 and then we'll bisect Chicago just like that. Oops, no, don't want to click and drag. Perfect, there we go. So there's my shape. I can keep drawing shapes if I want, so I can do like a south side here as well, come all the way up to there, and close that shape as well. And then when I'm all done drawing shapes, I'll click the big orange done button. You'll see in the left hand sidebar, this creates a territories folder. So I now have an employees layer, customers layer, and now a territories layer. And the territories layer also has its own 3-bar menu. If I click that 3-bar menu, I see a lot of similar options. I see some style options, filter, segment, view data, we know that one as well. And then if I go a little bit farther down, I see some options unique to territories where I can add the circles, add rectangles, add territories to this folder. I can also do a folder report. Let's go ahead and click on that and I'll show you what that does. This is a report about all of the shapes inside this folder. So right now I only have 2 shapes. I've got territory 1 and territory 2, but it's giving me the count, sum, and some other details about my data. So I know I've got 18 customers inside territory 1. There's the sum of sales, so on and so forth. I can also do it by location. So this is going to list all of my customers that appear in those 2 territories and then which territory they fall within. That is really cool. And this is something that, again, I can download to Excel if I want. Bottom right corner, download. Let's get back to the map here. I can also get some of that data just by clicking on one shape. So if I want those details for just one shape, I can click on that shape, download that list of customers, or I can click View Interior Data. And here it is. These are the customers that fall inside that northern territory. Again, this is my data set. So I can edit all of this data. So maybe I want to change the assigned team to North Chicago or something. And then I'll grab that, copy it, paste it all the way down. Boom, I've just changed all of these customers are now assigned North Chicago. And that's in my data. So anywhere else this data is being used, I've made that change. Pretty cool stuff. Let's do more. Now, one of the things you'll want to be mindful of for territories is if you have multiple layers. So let me go to Add Territories, and let's add from our Mapline Repository. So I just want to add some territories to my map. In this case, let's just add US states. So I'm going to expand the countries folder, scroll all the way down. There's the United States, expand it. And I don't want counties or cities and towns, school districts. There's a lot in here. I can add the states, and I can add all the states, or I can drop that down a little bit more, and let's just add Illinois, Indiana, and Iowa. That's great. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and add those 3. I'll click OK. All right, there they are. Now, if I try and click on my shapes from before, it just pulls up Illinois. So I've got a layering thing I want to be mindful of here. Again, left-hand sidebar, what's on top? My states are on top, and then my territories folder. So I can click and drag and change that. And now if I click on this, it's territory 1, just like that. All of these can be styled, like I said, just like pins. Really cool stuff. Just like a dataset layer, a territory layer also has data. If I click this drop down and I click View Data, this is going to pull up all the details about those territories. So in this case, I grabbed some columns, Illinois, Indiana, and Iowa. These are the states, and they're in this country. But I can add additional columns here. So if I want to manually add my sales for each territory or the name of the sales rep assigned to that territory or something, I can do that. Some of that can also be done using Mapline data, but that's for a separate training. The final piece about territories that I want to show is in the Add button, I have this using map layer pins, and I also have that in the pin menu. So if I click in the pin menu, here it is, Create Territories. Same thing on both fronts. This is going to create territories around your pins. So if I click on Create Territories for Customers, in this case, I want to create territories around my customers, and I want it to be groups of pins, and I want to group those pins maybe by assigned team. So every single pin that is assigned to the same team is going to be grouped and then drawn around. I'll click OK. And then in this case, let's just do an outer boundary of 5 miles. and we'll see what that looks like. I'll go ahead and click preview. And I'm going to uncheck. Okay, there we go. So I didn't tell Mapline to use any like state boundaries or anything like that. I said just go 5 miles out. But here we go. So all of these pins up here, they all belong to the same territory. And these ones down here, they all belong to the same territory. And again, the territories are based off of the assigned teams. If I click save, there's my central team. There's my Northern Plains team. There's my Midwest team. Now these territories that got automatically generated, I can also have them locked to state boundaries or county boundaries, that sort of thing. I just went with the simple option. Okay, let's get back to base map now. The final thing to go over is routes. Now there's a couple different places where we can build routes. The first is at the dataset. If I create optimized route from here, it's going to route everything inside this layer. If I go to a territory, it's going to route everything inside the territory. Or I can go up to the add button at the top, routes, and this will let me have a couple of additional options. Here I can select which map pins I want to route, or I can just sort of click and create an ordered route, or again, I can use dataset location. So in this case, I'm going to just select the map pins to route. This lets me draw a shape around the pins I want routed. So I'm going to come into Denver here, click, 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 so on and so forth. And next is the starting point. Where should this route start? I can click anywhere on the map. I can type in an address. In this case, I'm going to select Alley, click next. And then final destination, let's make it round trip. So I'll click on Alley again. And there's my route. Pretty cool. And we'll call this Alley's route. Okay, that's now appearing on my map and on my left-hand sidebar. And again, just like everything else, it has its own 3-bar menu. If I click that drop down, I can style it, rename it, and then I have a couple things that are unique to routes. I can get the directions. Let me go ahead and click on that. This is going to pull up just a little summary about the route. How long is it? What type of driving time can I expect just on like a typical day and time sort of thing. I can also, if I go back to this option, export the route. This is going to pull up an Excel sheet with the stops in order of visits. But I can also see that list just by expanding the left-hand sidebar here. Let's see the little orange arrow on the left. If I click that, okay, here it is. I'm going to go to these are my customer locations. Now a couple have the same name. It's because I took the name of the city and made that the name of my customer. In your case, it would actually have your customer's name. So you're going to go to Bob first, and then Sally, and then Joe, so on and so forth. That's routing in Mapline. Now we do have more advanced routing available on other plans, but for geo mapping, that's the type of routing you can expect. Okay, back to base map here. I have a beautiful map. I've created some territories, a route, got a bunch of pins colored. I want to share this with some other members of my team. So if I go to options in the top left corner and then share, well, I could always just download it as an image and share that, but I want this to be dynamic. I want them to be able to click on a pin and see the details. So I'm going to go to share. I have two options here. My first option is I can privately share with anyone on the account. I can type in their email, click share. I can give them view only access or edit access, and they'll be able to work with it. If they don't have a Mapline license, if they're not on my account, I can also publicly share this map. Now, if I make this public, that means that anyone with the link can access it. So it's just like Facebook.com or Google.com. It's a public link. Even if you put it behind a password, the link itself is still accessible by anyone. So you want to be mindful of the type of data you are exposing in that way. Just something to think about. But if it's like a quick little map and I want to just share it publicly, totally doable. And the final thing is, if you are sharing this with someone on the account, I can share the map with edit permissions, so they can draw shapes, change pin colors, create routes, that type of stuff. But the data set I share with view only permissions, meaning they can't go in and change the details about a customer. That's a very common example in Mapline that we have a lot of customers doing. And that's it. Now, there's a lot in here that I just haven't touched. There's a lot to cover. So if you have specific questions, I want to call out a couple of additional resources that you have. On my screen in the top right corner, I have a help tab. Not only is this going to give me access to some how-to guides, but I can also use Contact Us. This is a fantastic resource. No bots. It goes straight to someone at Mapline here at the headquarters who knows their stuff. So you can reach out to them and ask, how do I save a filter so I can use it later? Or how do I adjust the color of my map? Some things that maybe I didn't touch on today just for sake of time. A lot of great resources there that you can use to learn more about Mapline. And that's it. We hope you have so much fun with geomapping. It's super powerful. please check out the other training videos for Geo BI, Geo Routing, and Geo Scheduling to see if those would be better fits for you and your company.